Welcome everyone to another episode of the Studs and Spuds, the Studs and Spuds.
Studs and Spuds. I like it. We're not going to redo it. We're not redoing it. It's
We're not
Studs and
redoing it this
Spuds
time. We're not redoing it.
podcast. A few spuds sprinkled in there. Who doesn't like a good spud?
And we're the scrubs, so it's okay if we make mistakes because that's precedent.
Exactly.
That's
We're not perfect.
Lena is our interim producer right now because she's the only one who's young enough or talented enough to know how the internet works. So we'll just leave it in. Studs and Scrubs podcast. Nick and I have had a very long pre-podcast conversation, so we're a little tongue-tied now, just talking amongst ourselves for too long.
Yeah.
But that's probably good.
Yeah.
Because
we got that out of the way.
We can get into the hockey.
We're ready to go. So.
Nick, did you want to do a little chit-chat at all? You had a very eventful weekend. You got your Christmas going.
Yeah, just kind of quick little recap. So this past weekend we went to Chicago. My son Eli had a hockey game in Pekin. We were up there, and he got a couple shifts that game. Pekin's very good, and he was in the penalty box Friday night. Goalie got into a little bit of a scrum, got a 2-minute roughing penalty. So guess who served the penalty for the goalie? Eli Cordell. So,
that's awesome.
And then as soon as the penalty was over, skated to the bench. Another guy came on. So, but he did. It counts as a shift. I'll count it. Counts. He was out there. Team player, doing whatever he can to help the team win. If he's got to sit in the penalty box serving the penalty, he'll do it. And then anyway, after that, we went to Chicago, comedy show. John Chris got some deep dish pizza. Went to the Chris Kindle Market. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or been to that. It's like a German open air market. A lot of vendors, Christmas, like the cuckoo clocks. They got the mugs and the steins and the very Bavarian Germany.
Yes, yeah. A lot of Germans up in Chicago area.
So very cool. It's all like kind of, it's all kind of Christmassy stuff. So ornaments and decorations and different things. Very crowded, very crowded. Partly because I think they usually have one by Wrigley Field, and this year they're not because of the Winter Classic. There's other things around Wrigley Field right now. So they usually have, I think, 3 locations. This year they're down to 2, so a little more, intense. But it was a lot of fun. Got home Sunday afternoon. We were up there just 36 hours, maybe, seemed like. So quick little trip to Chicago, but it was fun. Christmas vibes in the city,
That's good stuff.
So,
I like that. I was going to mention this weekend you were traveling for hockey, and Eli's playing for the high school team this year, right?
Yes. Yep.
First time? So I was trying to remember that I was either 8th grade or 9th grade, something like that. I think probably 9th grade when I started playing the travel in Peoria, Illinois. And I think it was their first year or second year that they did the Central States Development League. That was like, you were kind of one step below the true AAA midget, which they don't call midget nowadays. I think it's just called 18U. So like to play in Canada, they call it major midget. And so like 18U, me and a couple of my buddies were the only like freshmen that made the team. And so the way it works is like you're 18 when the season starts, right? So like there was 2 guys on our team that were in college, and we were freshmen in high school. And so it was kind of culture shock, but it was good for us that it was like our team actually was pretty good. And our best people, kind of like Nashville Predators, were just not producing.
Yeah.
The one dude like had the record for the youth hockey most goals. I can't remember. We played like 40 games. He had like 70 goals in 40 games. And then the year I was on the team, he had like 7 goals the whole year. 7, not 70. It was like, but he was really smart. He got into Notre Dame in Indiana. So he was in his senior year with all AP classes, and he was kind of like done with hockey. So we were like, well, there's no one scoring goals. And I was the backup goalie and was real skitty and little like I am now. But weirdly enough, I married a girl from Puerto Rico. This goalie was really good. He not good enough to go to the NHL. but he was going to go to St. Louis University. I think he got a full ride to go to SLU. Wow. And he turned it down to play juniors. Huh. And then he got cut from the team. Oh. And he shouldn't have been cut. He was probably the backup, but he was good. And so he was like going to the local community college and was all angry and mad and was like, but his name was Rico. And that was not his name. Shout out if you ever listen. His name was Evan Cassis. And I didn't know until like the whole year was over that it was because he's Puerto Rican. He was from Illinois, but his family's Puerto Rican. And so they called him Rico. Wow. And I was like, what? Rico's not his name? Like, I mean, I knew his jersey said Cassis. Right. But I just thought it was a nickname. I didn't know it had anything to do with Puerto Rico. And he used to just scream at me because he was in really good shape. And you got to work out more. You got to get in better shape. And he'd make me run the bleachers with him after practice with your gear on. Like we were goalies, so we took off our pads. But he'd come in the locker room. What is taking you so long? Get your skates on. Let's go. And we'd run the bleachers, and then we'd do like 20 squats. And then run the bleachers where you skip a step and do 20 squats. And then skip 2 and do 20. So it was like short, but we did like a 20-minute workout after practice. And he was always like, the goalies have to be the best shape on the team. You suck at skating. You're out of shape. You need to lift weights. Like, so it was actually really good for me. But the only reason I got sidetracked was that we used to practice at the Pekin Arena you were just at. Okay. Yeah. And fun little Stu tying in the geography to hockey. Anyone who ever listens who's from Illinois, or if you've spent any time in Illinois, knows that there's like 1 million cities in Illinois that are named after famous cities, right? Yeah. Like Athens, Greece, one of the most famous cities in the history of humankind, right? Is Athens, Illinois. Yeah. They always mispronounce them. Havana instead of Havana, Cuba. And there's Cairo, and there's all these cities all over Paris, all over Illinois, right? Well, did you know that Pekin, Illinois is one of them?
Is that because if you go straight through the Earth, you end up in Pekin, China?
Okay, maybe, because, see, I didn't know that part, but...
I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just wondering.
I can't remember. There's actually a geographic term. If you could go through the Earth, where do you come out? Yeah. But a lot of people that are younger don't realize that Pekin, Illinois is mispronounced. It's Peking, and Peking is Beijing. Used to be called Peking. Okay. So Beijing, China is Peking, Illinois, and that's why they're the Dragons. Okay. The high school is the Dragons. Yeah. But if you play youth hockey and you go there, at least they used to be the Flyers. So you go in, everything is a total ripoff of the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yep, you're
and
right.
It's his home of the Dragons. And we were always like, we did a tournament there every single Thanksgiving. The Pepsi Shootout was in Pekin, home of the Dragons. And the team comes out and they're the Philadelphia Flyers. And I'm like, what? So anyways, when you just said you were
the there, pictures of the Flyers stuff on the...
Yeah, so when you were there, I was like, there used to be a big red dragon painted on the wall. I was like, you need to take a picture. We can throw it up on the podcast.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that there. So.
Well, I wonder if it got painted over because they kind of got canceled a little bit.
They used to not be the Dragons or the Flyers.
They
were something else.
And the local schools are not very PC about like the football games. They will call them names that will get you canceled quick online, and
that might have happened. So.
Mm-hmm. And so they really kind of like dialed back. It's also a huge high school. Like when you said they were good at hockey, it makes sense because I had friends that played there when we played travel. They would also play high school. And they were always the best, right? So it was like if they didn't go to the game, it'd be close, and then they'd show up and score 6 goals, and like it'd be over. But my buddy was good. He was our captain when I was older, and he was the captain of Robert Morris University in Chicago. Like he was good at hockey. Yeah. So if he'd go, they'd win, and if he didn't. But my other friend, who was a real great, like a Holmstrom type of just a grinder, You just beat him square. He doesn't care. He played football for Pekin, and Pekin was 8A. So the only schools big enough in the whole state are in Chicago.
Yeah.
So he'd every weekend we have to drive up to Chicago and just get annihilated. They've got 6 kids on the team that are going NCAA. Right. They're playing guys that are going to go in the NFL, and they're just getting smashed every game. He's we lost 60-3. I mean,
yeah, that's
so.
All right.
Managed to burn 10 minutes despite we said we no small talk, but
that's okay. That's all right. We're gonna get right to it. It's gonna be a little bit of a shorter episode. We're just kind of plugging these in as we go along. I tell you what, it is hard this time of year with everything going on. We had a band concert tonight. Eli had a hockey game last night. And then tomorrow night he's got another game against Decatur. Thursday night we don't have anything. Friday night there's always concert. This time of year is so crazy and hard to find time to record these episodes.
Yeah.
It feels like we've been kind of slacking lately, but we're just busy.
Yeah. And we had a delay with the recording, so we're going to do a quick one because the Four Nations rosters got announced. So we were going to do a short episode to talk about the rosters, and then we ran into some technical difficulties and some travel and Christmas, like we've been saying. Yeah. So we're kind of dropping this one mid-podcast, and then we're going to do a normal one this week as well later on. So with that, we wanted to jump into it. I'm not going to read through the whole rosters at this point. Everyone's seen them. Yeah. But I figured I'd kind of start with the teams that are expected, I guess I should say. So I'm going to go with Finland first, and then just kind of their roster to me didn't have anything too glaring other than maybe the surprise people would be Hakanpää and Armia both made the team, and a lot of people were surprised that Jesper Kotkaniemi did not make the team. So that was one of their bigger ones. Hakanpää, I think that, in my opinion, it looks like Finland is trying to load up. They're going big and tough as much as possible because they know it'll be difficult to keep up with Canada and USA are kind of the big dogs. But right. I think they're going to just try to beat them up a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah. It is weird. When I first saw the rosters, I mean, obviously, even the Olympics and everything, Canada is just so stacked. Who's the Canadians we got for the Canada? Their goalies. Montembeault?
Canada's goalies ended up being Hill,
Aiden Hill,
Binnington, and Montembleu.
Yeah, I mean, Canada's so good. They're pretty stacked. And so when I was looking through the rosters immediately, USA, Canada stood out to me. Sweden's produced some great NHL players. Being a Wings fan, I know all about the Swedish players. But I don't know if the thing that I was looking at was the lines. I think it was just telling me who was on the team. Because Nyquist was top. If you looked at it the way it put it on there, he was on the top right that I was looking at. So it made it seem like he was the top right winger. And I was like, Nyquist is your top?
Yeah, which would be hard for me because that's kind of a good transition into Sweden and Red Wings is it's nice to see Larkin is a no-brainer for USA and Raymond's a no-brainer for Sweden because the Wings have struggled a little bit. So obviously Raymond is doing a pretty good job putting the puck in the net despite the team struggling, and Larkin is still kind of unfortunately for the Wings this season once again is kind of shining a light on Larkin is way underrated and he's so good and he really drives the team. And if you could just put 4 or 5 people that can play with him, then maybe we'd be a different team. But you got this young stud Raymond, Seider, and Larkin, and the team kind of falls apart a little bit after that. Yeah. And Raymond, I assume, would be their line one winger, looking, maybe not, but yeah. Nyquist to me, as much as I love the Goose, I think he made the team based on his past successes. Yeah. Because he's not doing that much this year, and he's getting a little bit older. And I don't have their projected lines, I guess, but I'm looking at William Karlsson.
Their roster, and I thought it was projected lines. So that's where I was wrong with what I was looking at. But yeah, even Erik Karlsson, I think, is on the team.
Right, which... Okay, so there's something you've probably heard. There was... No one said who it was, but there was one team or maybe two that requested if they could make the roster bigger. Add 2 more spots. Okay. And there's a lot of speculation that Sweden requested it because they had to announce players early, and Erik Karlsson, they figured, is a no-brainer. And now it's like, I don't think this dude even should be on the team. And there was, his name's Matt Murley, if you know him, right? He's on Spin Chicklets, but he used to play in the NHL and everything. And he is like, he lives in Sweden. He is really, really big on this theory that Erik Karlsson should just play right wing.
Oh, yeah.
And like, not only on this team for a short tournament, like put him on the power play and make him a winger. And just play, because then if you get burnt, you got an extra D out there, but like, don't even play him at D. And then some of these big D, like basically before the announcement was made, right? You had Forsling and Dahlin and Hedman and Brodin. It was like, go get the young guys or some of the size, and then just have Karlsson be the 13th forward instead of the 7th defenseman. And they didn't really. I think some people were surprised. I wrote down some of the surprises that they did. Victor Arvidsson and Nyquist both made the team. And at the time that I made the list, William Eklund did not make the team.
Oh, okay.
Has more points this season than Arvidsson and Nyquist combined.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, he's been putting up some digits in San Jose, I feel like. So.
Yes, and so has Michael Backlund, right? Did they play?
Oh, maybe.
William Eklund is who I said. But Backlund, though, wait, no. No.
Is Eklund on the Sharks? Who am I thinking?
No, I have it wrong. But William Eklund, though, is doing really well this season.
Who does he play for?
I don't remember now, sorry. Okay. I'm pulling him up. I should know this because I wrote it down, but then I didn't write his team.
It's all right. Yeah, so, I mean, there's the European... It's just... When I first saw the rosters, I immediately just...
San Jose, you're right.
Okay. USA and Canada are in a different group, and then Finland and Sweden. And I know... That hasn't always been the case, and maybe it won't be this year. There'll be some upset. Who knows what? I mean, is it just something new that the NHL's, trying, in place of the All-Star game? Hey, we're going to have these guys. They're all NHL players, so they might not even be the best player for that team. Now, obviously, it's not like we got some hidden USA gem playing in the KHL or something that we would grab for the Olympics or something, but yeah. So I don't know. There were just some names on Team Sweden that I was like, oh man, these guys, like you said, are just kind of on there because of what they've done in the past. Finland, there's a lot of guys on there that maybe kind of younger guys that haven't played in the league a long time. So
yeah, like when I look at Finland, I think that they're underrated because they always are at these tournaments. Yeah. And they play kind of a smothered lockdown D. You look at Barkov is pretty much unquestionable their best player, I'd say, even though they do have some really good players. But Barkov's just, I still think he's underrated despite winning the cup and being amazing. That type of play where they just like, Barkov could shut down McDavid. Like that's how good he is at playing the two-way center. Yeah. So now you're getting frustrated. And I think that goes into some of USA and Canada's decisions where there was some really, really talented people left off of rosters. And it was like, we got people who can score. We need like a real third line, grind line, where normally at a short tournament of 6 games, you're saying it's a debate, right? you're Canada. Just roll 4 lines of superstars. You can't stop us. And I think that Canada is trying to, in my opinion, USA's got the most complete top to bottom roster. And you can tell Canada's making some decisions where who do I have for some snubs? They leaving off some big names that are like Hyman, Scheifele, Verhaeghe, Noah Dobson, Stamkos, Evan Bouchard. Like they're leaving off some big superstars that they're kind of going.
Bouchard did surprise me that he wasn't on there.
Yeah, and they take some people like Sam Bennett, who probably deserves to be there, but you can tell they're kind of going like, Cicerelli and Hagel. They're going some of these like, we need people that can play everywhere. You need to be able to kill a penalty. You need to be able, and USA is kind of similar. No Cole Caulfield, like they. There's some of these young guns, but I got distracted talking about Finland. They're still rolling out Rope Hens, Barkov, Sebastian Aho, Mikko Rantanen. Laine's back and he's scoring every game. Like, don't sleep. They're a good team. They've only got 18 stars. Canada's got 50 stars. Who cares? You can only bring 18. You know what I mean? Like, you can only put 3 lines out on the ice type of deal. So, moving on though with the loaded teams, right? I mean, Canada and USA are by far the most loaded. Did you see any standout snubs or like something that's gonna kind of jump at you? And then also maybe anything with fantasy, because I kind of thought some of these guys,
I didn't.
It could affect fantasy in theory with some of this decision making.
So while we were talking there about Evan Bouchard, especially, it got me thinking. Okay, did some of these guys turn down being on one of these teams? Did some of these guys turn down being on these teams?
Maybe. You've heard that with like the All-Star, right? Like, I don't want to go.
It's in place of the All-Star game. So because it's in place of the All-Star game, is it, guys are choosing rest? Evan Bouchard has been playing hockey for a while now.
Yeah.
He was in the Cup Finals, so how deep did their season go to then turn around and, start playing back up again? So I know you get some of these guys, Ovechkin's famous for it. Hey, he'd rather just have the days off.
Right.
So how prestigious is this right now? I could see some NHL players just thinking this is not necessarily a gimmick, but just like, okay, what are we doing? A Four Nations Cup? Are we trying to get something that just doesn't have the prestige right now to get players, into it and to want to play for it? So I wonder how much that takes into effect as far as like players asking to be left off of teams.
Yeah, I wonder too. I feel like not probably that far. I would imagine that there's people that maybe internally are like, I don't really want to, but I don't know if there's anyone that like, it's been so long, right? There's been no Olympics and whatever, that like it is such an honor, I think, to be like, look, we want you to represent your flag and to be on the best on the best. You have an opportunity to go against Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, McCarr, and steal the gold medal from them. And you say, no thanks. I need to rest for the playoffs. I don't know if anyone's going to get that phone call and actually have the kahunas to do it, even if inside they're going, I don't know. I mean, I have no clue, but to me, I would just think it's too cool of a thing, even though it's not the Olympics and it is kind of a marketing thing.
I think you're right, though, because they haven't played, NHL players haven't been in the Olympics for a while. And I know there are guys that, especially Canadians, that is such a high honor to represent your team, no matter where you're playing. And I would think that, the USA, we've been right there for so long, but can't quite get over the hump of Canada that, we're playing for pride too, so I think that there's probably, that part of it where it's like, all right, we want to beat Canada in hockey at their own game, essentially, any way we can. So, so I probably don't think, especially at this point, you let yourself get named to it, and then, I could see maybe in January or February, when it gets closer to the point when they're going to be playing this tournament, you might say, "Hey, I'm dinged up a little bit. I'd rather have the time. I appreciate the thing." I mean, because they're going to have every team now, whether they announce these players or not, I don't know, but every team's going to have some alternates.
Yeah, I think you have to, basically.
Just with injuries and stuff. You have guys wanting to play, but someone gets hurt. You got to have another player ready to step up. Another thing I'd be interested to know is, I wonder how much teams have in say of these guys playing. You get a guy who's a little banged up, McDavid just like, oh yeah, I'm coming back from an injury. I'm good to go. Can Edmonton be like, listen, we want you to be healthy for us, not this little in-season tournament kind of a thing? So
here's a good example. Exactly what you said. Didn't mean to cut you off. Is someone like Drew Doughty might be good to go in February.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, he's a hands down, no questions asked, guaranteed spot on Canada if he's healthy.
Yeah.
And so they don't pick him, right? Because I assume they're thinking, well, we don't know if he's healthy. I don't know. Did they give him a phone call and he said, I want to play, but I don't want to take the spot if somebody's hurt?
Sure.
And then it's like, okay, if you get to February and he's still hurt, he's not going to go. But if he comes back January 30th and they're all packing their bags to head over, then now he's in a weird position, right? Where he, like you're saying, he's probably going, normally I'd play, but like I'm injured and I'm trying to come back. So that's what you're kind of saying, I think is true. Once it comes down to somebody's a little bit hurt, they might step out. But there are some bubble people that I wonder if it plays into fantasy at all. I kind of think it will. I went ahead and put my money where my mouth is and got somebody. And it was easy to do because he's doing well right now.
Yeah.
But Ricard Raquel was openly upset that he didn't make Team Sweden.
Okay.
And he had some quote that I had pulled up. It wasn't super dramatic, but it was like he publicly said that he was, surprised that he didn't make the team, basically. It was professional. He didn't flip out. But the quote was, obviously, I'm very disappointed. I thought that I definitely had a good chance to make it, but there's a lot of good Swedish players in this league, and they built the team however they wanted. I have just tried to focus on my game here, and I was hoping that it was going to be enough to make the team, but it gives me some more motivation to show them that I should have been there. I don't know what to say. I respect their choice, but I'm going to prove them wrong.
Wow.
Then I looked it up. He scored like 5 games in a row the week before they announced it.
Okay.
And then when they announced it, the game after, terrible game. No goals, no assists. He's like -4. And the game after that, I can't remember, like a goal and an assist, and he's been producing like crazy afterwards. So I almost wonder, I'm too lazy to check, these bubble players like Tage Thompson and Cole Caulfield, I bet you the game after the roster came out, they didn't play very well. Yeah. I think they were affected by it. And there was somebody that was interviewed, I can't remember who it was, that came out to the podium and he said, I'm not answering any questions about the 4 nations. Might have been in New York because it had to do with this Trouba and Shesterkin stuff too, but the Trouba trade wasn't announced yet. He said, I'm not talking about trades. I'm not talking about 4 nations. And it was maybe Torchek or one of those guys that are kind of bubble for the rosters, but I can't remember who that player was. But it was interesting to see that Raquel was like openly upset, and then he's doing really well in real life scoring. So I'm like, I wonder if there's some of these guys that didn't make the roster who you thought maybe they would. Like, I'm looking at Canada real quick before I'm going to speak. Tommy Gunn Wilson. I understand that he didn't make the team, but based off of this year, he could have made the team.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of guys especially U.S. and Canada, that like probably could have or even should have made the team. Logan Thompson, debatably, not even debatably, I think he's the best Canadian goalie in the league this season. Not even on the team.
So when I first looked at the teams, it did stand out to me. I'm going to be a little biased here, but I think the U.S. has the best goalies in the tournament.
Best goalies? Oh,
yes.
Definitely the best three, right?
The best three.
Because I know that like Saros could steal the whole tournament.
Yeah.
Even Hill and Binnington, I mean, they're good enough too.
You could be. They could be. Bennington,
but USA had 6 goalies that I would take before Canada's.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do. I looked up the format. I wasn't real familiar with what the format was going to be, but I guess they're doing a round robin and then a 1-game like playoff with the top 2 teams.
Right. Okay. Because there's only 6 if you win the gold medal, right? You only play 6 games or 5 games?
Yeah, something like
that. Yeah. 1 team each and then semi-final and final.
Yeah.
So 5, 6?
Yeah. So it's going to be kind of a little short, squeeze it in there kind of a thing. But, yeah, I'd be interested to see how I think they're going to do. Initially, my initial gut response was U.S. and Canada are going to be at the top. Sweden and Finland are the bottom 2 teams.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, I wouldn't be shocked to see Finland or Sweden pull off an upset against one of those teams. And then, that's all it's going to take is for the U.S. to lose to Sweden. And then, Finland and then that might be the only win that Sweden has.
Right.
They get up for that game, and then, the U.S. gets knocked out because Finland now, has more points than them or something like that. So, so it'll be interesting. I don't know. Initially, I think Canada-U.S. in the final game, but that seems too easy, and on paper it makes sense, but that's why we play the game, right? Because nothing always turns out, the way we think it's going to on paper, exactly. So
yeah, exactly. And the round robin, it's such a short tournament that, like you said, there could just be one weird upset where could Canada and U.S. play each other in the knockout round.
Well, right.
And then it's like
even in the round robin, they're going to play each other, so one of them's going to have a loss. And then all it's going to take is for, them another loss to Finland. You get a rant that goes off or something, or, who knows what it would be.
Right.
Like
right. Exactly. You look at Finland.
And, they get up for that game and they pull out an upset.
Well, and it doesn't have to be a huge upset to be like Saros has a really good game, right? He lets in 1 goal on 30 shots. Rantanen has 2 goals, and whatever. Barkov from Aho on the power play. Right. Okay, well, they win 3-1. That seems like an upset, but it's like, it's not like, oh, Aiden Hill had a horrible game, or it's just that tight where it's like, okay, give McDavid 1, give McKinnon 1. Yeah. Finland could still win 3-2 against Canada. Right. Just depending. Like, all 4 teams are so stacked that it's not really just because Canada has 60 players that are good enough to go doesn't necessarily mean that in 3 games they're going to win. Right. They just have the most total players. It'd be cool if there was ever a tournament that Canada sent 2 teams. I always am kind of for that. Even the U.S. maybe, but like Canada definitely could send a B team because I feel like they've got a good enough roster where like the B team would be so angry that they're on the B squad that they'd be like, you don't know, they could like try to take down the A squad, it'd be awesome. But moving into to talk about USA's goalies and how stacked some of these people are is the Russia conversation. Just the goalies alone, is a good segue into. I'd probably go Shesterkin, Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, right? Your goalies. I mean, Vasilevsky's your worst goalie. Like,
it's pretty crazy.
And then you sent me a theorized roster because obviously they can't go, and you and I have talked right before the podcast how I kind of think if this tournament was NHL players only, right, that to do this, everyone keeps talking about the young guns when they did like the 23 and under North America. It's kind of fun, but then like I prefer if you would do Finland, Sweden, Canada, USA, Russia, and then the rest of the world combined. Because I think that you can highlight the best players in the NHL. You got to think of Draisaitl is the obvious one, and of course Red Wings Mo Seider. But like, there's a few players all over the league that play in smaller countries, like who did I say? Zuccarello. There's a few guys that are totally elite players that just can't go because they're from such a small nation. That because isn't Zuccarello from Denmark, right? I think.
I was thinking Switzerland, but he could be Denmark.
I can't remember now, but it's like there's not enough players to formulate a whole team that's competitive enough.
NHL players.
Right, of NHL only, right? Yeah. That it's like, it would be cool to
almost throw in some B Canadian players and B USA players on that rest of the world.
Oh, that's a fun twist, because it's the rest of the world. So now, look at some of these players. Jason Robertson, Tage Thompson, Cole Caulfield, Canada, Evan Bouchard, Logan Thompson, Zach Hyman, Connor Bedard, Celebrini. I mean, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. If you had 4 players from USA, 6 from Canada, and then you had 10, whatever the math is, from the rest of the world.
Right. Oh yeah.
Now you're talking, and then talk about being angry. If you send out whatever Jason Robertson, Tage Thompson, and Leon Draisaitl, and say, "Oh, okay, we're not good enough for your team." Okay. Yeah. Well, there's some really good players that maybe if you're whoever, let's pick on Stamkos, you go out there and you're lined up against Cicerelli, and you go, "You made the team? Yeah. I didn't make the team. More goals than anyone since I came into the league except Ovechkin, who's going to beat Wayne Gretzky. Right. And I'm not on the team." Okay. You never know.
I like that. I do like that.
That's a cool one, which we won't get into right now. Stamkos and Marchessault both still not scoring, so maybe they deserve to be off the team. But let's run through real quick, since we didn't read the rosters, the theoretical Russian roster. Okay. Panarin, Malkin, Kucherov, Kaprizov, Buchnevich, Andrei Shiknikov, Alexander Ovechkin, Barbashev, Nichushkin, Michkov, Nemesnikov, Marchenko on forwards. Defense, Sergachev, Orlov, Romanov, Kulikov, Garikov, and Artemi Zub. Goalies, Shesterkin, Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky. Yeah. Might be the best team in the tournament.
Yeah. That would be.
I mean, hard to say, but their line combos are whack to me. But Kaprizov is legitimately a top 5 in the NHL right now. I'm thinking that it's probably McKinnon, Makar, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Kaprizov, probably. And Kucherov. Kucherov. I mean, I think Kaprizov flies under the radar.
Yeah, he flies under the radar because he's in yes, it's Minnesota, but it's still kind of a small Midwestern market.
Minneapolis is still a smaller city. I know that people in Minnesota love hockey, but when we say big markets, it's like...
I'm talking New York, Chicago, Montreal, Toronto. Those are the big...
Los Angeles is a way bigger market. Just because California is California and Minnesota is Minnesota, it's still 12 million people versus 1.5 or 3, whatever many St. Paul has together. Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be very interesting. And I agree, Kaprizov is right up there with some of the elite players right now. So, who knows what could happen? Yeah, but what do you think? How do you think it's going to pan out? Give me. I'm sorry. I don't know where we're at time wise. My timer's gone on my thing, but
well, hopefully we have a recording then. We're at 40 minutes. We're doing pretty good to wrap up here.
So, what would be? Give me how you think they're going to finish.
Oh man. Okay. The obvious one to me is the U.S.-Canada showdown, but I'm gonna just for fun call an upset. I'm gonna stick with USA just because of the pride. Okay, so USA is gonna get gold, but I think there's gonna be a weird upset. I'm gonna go USA versus Finland for the final game, and then Canada cleans up Sweden pretty easily. I could see because I could see all these Canadians going, well, we should have won. Where USA gets gold against Finland, and then nothing against Sweden, but Canada's pissed off, and they, win like 7-1 in the bronze game, and then they're like, oh well, we would have won. We would have won if we were in the final. Well, you weren't because you lost in the semis or something.
Yeah, I like it. That's the order that I think I have them in. USA won because Hellebuck is going to let in. I'm going to predict he's going to have a Carey Price in the Olympics type tournament. Hellebuck's going to be on it, and the U.S. is just going to, I think, dominate.
I like it.
And then, like you said, I think there's going to be some weird upset that U.S. will beat Canada in the round robin, and then I think Canada loses to Finland or something in the round robin as well. So U.S. beats Finland in the gold, and then, like you said, I think Canada then just comes out and they don't want to finish last in the tournament. They're upset, and then they just whack Sweden. Nothing against Sweden. I mean, you're talking; these are the top 14 or 4. I mean, you could say top. I mean, yes, Russia's got a great squad, but they're not in it. But it's not like Sweden's a team full of scrubs. They're still great players. So it's nothing. You finish 4th in the Four Nations Cup. Okay, great. You finish last in it, but you're still one of the countries that got to be there because you have. So yeah, I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at. So yes, it would suck for them, and I think that whoever does finish last is going to, have some. They're going to feel the pride, kind of hurt a little bit. But I mean, you're still some of the best of the best.
You're still some of the best, and you know what? It's going to sting a little bit because people like to bring up because Russia's not allowed to go. Yeah. If you finish 4th, people are going to say, well, you would have lost to Russia also.
Right.
Even if there's no proof of that. So it doesn't matter if it's Canada or if it's Sweden or if it's USA, Finland. Like, if you get 4th, it'd be like, well, Russia's better than you. So really you got 5th, and they're not even there. So it's like hard. But I do see, in my opinion, Sweden's flaw is going to be a combination of Erik Karlsson. No offense. I know he was lined up for our interview next week, and he's going to cancel. And I see pretty much everyone across the board is saying that Markstrom is their starting goalie, which I personally think is a big mistake. Gustafsson is the guy right now. And I think you're totally crazy to play Markstrom based on his past, I guess. But he's been B+, A- goalie for 3 seasons. So I'm like, Gustafsson's just been an upward trajectory. Forget the goal and how good he's been playing this season. I think he's just better than Markstrom. And you've got 3 games to figure out who's starting in goal, which is Canada's whole weak point. If they go out there and they play Monty 1 game, Hill 1 game, Binnington 1 game, go home. Right. You have to give Binnington the Bugs, Michael Jordan's super water from Looney Tunes Space Jam, and let him go psycho. Because if Binnington is playing like he did with the Blues Cup run, then Canada's probably going to win. And if they're sitting there playing musical chairs with their goalies, they're going to lose. Right. It's that simple. And I know I'm as an American, I want them to win, but I am terrified of a Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, Makar on the ice. Just give them a goal. It is interesting that I hope that Hellebuck just goes full-blown Carey Price Olympics when he let in like 4 goals the whole tournament. Because I kind of see it, if I was in charge, I probably wouldn't have a job because I'd probably play Jay Cottinger. Even though Hellebuck's amazing and he's probably going to win 2 Vezinas in a row, Ottinger's amazing in the playoffs. Swayman's amazing in the playoffs.
And
Hellebuck
really a bad option. There's not really a bad option out there. So, but like you said, it is a short tournament. You don't have a lot of time to figure it out. So you need whoever you're going to start to be the right pick and to be on it right away. So,
and to that point, I kind of agree with the I don't know. Maybe if you play them game 1 and game 2 and they play bad, they're gone. But pick somebody and stick with them. Like, if Hellebuck has an amazing first game and then his second game is not very good, don't start panicking. Right. The dude's got 2 Vezinas. He's probably going to get a third, right? Or does he just have 1?
He might just have 1.
But he might get 2 back-to-back. Just ride him. Okay, so those are our bold predictions that aren't that bold. Other than a lot of people are saying Canada is the hands-down best team in the world. I don't think so. I think USA is the favorite.
Yeah.
So I love it. Obviously, we're biased, but
Yep, I like it.
Okay, so we'll probably wrap up there because we were trying to do short, and we did pretty good. 46 minutes. For us, that's really short. Yeah. Anything else to add before we send her away?
Ooh, I don't think so. Hopefully next episode we'll get back to some Studs and Scrubs, NHL, Nick's history lesson, and back at it.
That's the best segment. The history lesson's the best segment. Bring some trivia for me to guess, stumble my way through. All right, Nick, thank you for jumping on here, doing this quick one, and then we'll get back to it this weekend to drop on the following Monday like normal. So thank you for listening, everybody. Keep your stick on the ice.
Make the first move,